On July 24th, aviation lost a legend. Retired Navy Captain Dale Snort Snodgrass was killed when the private plane he was taking off in crashed in Lewiston, Idaho. Now, during a live stream remembrance here on the channel the following day, I mentioned that there was some great footage of Snort talking about his time in the F-14 in the documentary Tomcat Tales. And I recommended that the producers of that documentary, Speed and Angels, edit the Snort content altogether and then release that. Well, one of the producers, Mark Vizcarra, a fellow Tomcat guy, reached out to me and gave me all of that footage together. So we present that to you here now. In this first segment, Snort talks about that famous knife-edge pass that gave rise to a million internet rumors and Instagram memes.
There's a photo out there of me doing a knife-edge pass by the LSO platform. And there's a lot of the statements say, well, I got in trouble and the pilot got in trouble and was grounded, and that's not the case at all. It was actually the opening move to my at-sea flight demo. So I got away with a lot of stuff at that time.
Now here Snort describes the first time he saw the F-14 and how it was love at first sight.
I first met it when my father was a test pilot at Grumman. So when I was in high school, I went out and went to Grumman at Bethpage, and they had a full mock-up of the F-14. And I saw it in the special lighting and hangar and everything. They were trying to sell the airplane, et cetera, and I said, holy shit. Wow, what a great airplane. The Tomcat is unique. It has a presence, it has panache. And when you see that airplane, you know it's something like that has never been around and probably won't be around again. So I had the joy of flying it for 24 years and wound up being the high time Tomcat pilot with almost 5,000 hours in it.
In this next clip, Snort talks about the legendary 1v1 he had with a Marine Corps fighter pilot after that guy made the mistake of bragging about the capabilities of his brand new F-18 Hornet. Warning, if you're not Snort, and you're not, we here at the channel recommend you avoid doing these kinds of things. Plus, new airplanes have fun suppression baked into them, so things like pulling circuit breakers and manually moving the wings to a different position aren't even possible anymore. But let's listen to Snort.
I fought a brand new Hornet, Marine guy, Top Gun guy, and they were up at the Oak Club at Oceana. So these guys are talking big about we'll spank the Tomcat and all this stuff. So I start talking to this guy and baiting him in. I go, I tell you what, tomorrow we have a 2v2 scheduled. You're in that flight, I'm on that flight. I tell you, we'll just make it a 1v1. A 1v1, guns only, visual split, fights on the turn-in. And I said, but one engagement, whoever wins, assuming somebody wins, then the other squadron, the loser squadron, is going to buy all the cocktails and all the steamship round and all the shrimp we can eat on Friday night at the Oceana Oak Club. And that's back when the Oak Clubs were still a lot of fun. So we go to the brief, and then next day I launch out. Both squadrons fill the tax range because it's on the tax range. So we go out, and I go out, and I tell them I just need to launch early and go down. Really what I do is I went all the way down to the south end of the range in Whiskey 72 and dumped. I dumped gas down to about 6,500 pounds. And then we do a little intercept, we take apart, we take a split. Meanwhile, I'm going like 300 knots, and then I'm bringing the boards back, but I manually sweep the wings back to like bomb, so he thinks I'm going 450 knots. So I take him out a little farther than normal. Fight's on, we turn in, I got him bomb, and I'm at 250 knots, and I go, and then I immediately get below 225. Wings come forward. All the circuit breakers are out, MCB circuit breakers, pulled off slap circuit breakers. The big boys come down, and then I go to full grunt, and I merge at about 325. I drive him into a one-circle fight. I'm eating him up like a big dog. He's at 450 knots, pulling 7 Gs, and I'm just turning in silent. What I hoped he would do, and what he did was he got antsy, and he pulled at me hard. Bled he bled all his knots, and then I went to vertical, and I had plenty of smack, like 100 knots plus over him, and I go, and he goes up and dies, and I did sort of a double inland thing, came down and gunned him in 42 seconds from the turn in. And he says, and I said, tracking. Of course, everybody in the tax range has seen this, and they're going to, and I'm at 800 feet just drilling them. And then he says, okay, let's set up another. I just said, no, I'm bingo. So, and the other deal was, if you lost, you had to do a straight in. You couldn't go into the break. So anyway, That's the things I loved about the Tomcat, because there was stuff you could do with that airplane to turn it into a true BFM monster, particularly as you got later, we got the big engines. We got the B models and the D models, and I have a lot of time in those, but that was an awesome airplane.
Snort's contributions to the F-14 community extended beyond the cockpit. When he was the fighter wing commander, he led the effort to incorporate the LANTIRN pod onto the airplane, and that gave the airplane a bunch of capabilities that increased its lethality manyfold. Using the LANTIRN pod, the F-14 did deep strike in the early phases of the war in Afghanistan and led the hunt to find Saddam Hussein in the war in Iraq. In this segment, you'll hear Snort describe the rapid prototyping and developmental tests that they did out at China Lake, and also what he did using his understanding of how the Pentagon works to find the money to fund this effort. I used the LANTIRN pod on my final deployment, and in my mind, this is Snort's greatest legacy. So let's listen to him here.
I'm the fighter wing commander, and I'm a brand new guy at the desk, and they talk to me about putting a LANTIRN pod on the Tomcat. They tell me we're going to do this, and I said, absolutely, I'm all in. In 6 months, we went from a concept to dropping an LGB.
Op away. Good radar track on the item on profile 3.2 to target, 2 miles to target. Good energy, 1 mile to target. And mark impact, sir. Laser safe, please.
And then, and a lot of things fell in our favor. One was we put a new PTID in the back cockpits, put a big new display, a 12 by 12 display, and the magnification of the LANTIRN pod is directly proportional to the size of the display. The same display in a Strike Eagle with an 8 by 8 display was 8 power. We had 12 power. So the magnification and it had a lot of pixels in the new display, so the clarity was awesome. So we won out with that. And then the second thing was GPS. Because we were an analog airplane, we had an INS, but we couldn't talk to the thing, and the pod needed to be a digital event. So we weren't a 1553 bus type airplane then. So, and we couldn't tie the radar. We didn't have a ground mapping radar, so we didn't have a radar that we could layer into the feed information to the LANTIRN pod, so we can say, okay, point the pod over here. I said, can we put like a GPS unit in the thing? And he went, wow, that's a good idea. Literally in a week, they figured it out. They got a GPS unit that was off the shelf, that was going in Apache helicopters, embedded it in the LANTIRN pod, which was awesome because it stabilized the LANTIRN pod. You didn't have to have an INS and all that. We did that, and then we made it work, and it's amazing. I dropped the first live GBU on the bombing range and blew up a tank. And then the A6 was going away, and the Hornets just had the Nighthawk pod, and that was not very good. So this brought a brand new capability, and so we just won a couple things, happened to turn out and turned the airplane into a national asset at the end. And for a guy who was a fighter pilot and I don't want to never drop a bomb, then I became the true believer, and I believe I truly helped bring this along. So so we got the project and we had to pay for it. So I go up and I talk to PMA 242 up there, and I go up there, well, okay, what's it going to cost us? Like $1 billion. A lot of money to integrate this whole thing across the board. And I go, oh. Well, what do we have in the books? Well, we're in the process of spending almost that amount of money to put AMRAAM in the airplane. And I go, we don't need AMRAAM. I got Feeny bombs, I got Sparrows. I've been trying to shoot down somebody with a missile for my whole life, and it's not happening. I said, we need to go kill people on the ground. Let's take the $1 billion and put it in the LANTIRN pod, forget AMRAAM. I go see all the 4 stars, and I give them the brief. And the last thing they say, that's awesome, Snort. How are we going to pay for it? And I told them how to pay. We're going to pay for it. And they went, cha-chang. And so every sync called Washington and said, make this happen now. And so we did this fleet prototyping thing as opposed to a normal acquisition process. So we went from a handshake on trying to make it happen at Fighter Wing, the 2 days after I took over, to 1 year later deployed it with VF-103. And that was, in my opinion, the coolest thing I ever did. I go to bed at night going, oh, it's good. So that was a thrill to have that happen. And then it proved to be an awesome airplane. We turned into FAC-As, we turned into FAC-A machines, and guys in the squadrons, we became the platform of choice. We became pathfinders for Hornet squadrons. We even had one Tomcat go out 3 Hornets or 4 Hornets and go, there's your target, and then they'd use a laser spot designator, laser spot tracker to find that, and they go, that, I got it, I got it, I got it, and then the Tomcat would pick its own. So amazing, amazing story that the Tomcat really turned into a true national asset at the end of its life.
So thanks for Viz for providing this content, and here's to Snort continuing to influence the next generation of military aviators as he did while he walked among us. We miss you, Snort. Rest in peace.